Hi again folks, welcome back to Sci-Fi Scavenger, where I pick over the bones of other people's discarded science fiction. Appreciate you watching, and a special welcome if it's your first time. Why not subscribe while you're here? So we're going to do another haul video today, a slightly overdue one. I've got a stack of books to get through here, mostly acquired in the wild with almost no impatience. But I do have a few which, despite my recent confession book haul from a week or so ago, I fell off the wagon and I ordered a few books online. I was on a bit of a Peter F. Hamilton mission, and all caution and patience had gone out the window. And I'm a little bit burnt by that experience, actually, as will become clear. So I've kind of gone off the whole buying books online thing for a while anyway. So given that I had the Void trilogy turn up in a charity shop, a legit charity shop purchase for £2.50 each, I suddenly thought, well, there's no reason for me to not have the recent Peter F. Hamilton books. So I've got the Salvation trilogy, but I didn't have the Chronicle of the Fallers, as I believe it's called. So I ordered this one. Actually, this one's is actually in good condition, so I was happy enough with this one. It's clean. It's an ex-library book. How sad it was never taken out. The good people of Northamptonshire County Council, or the good people of Northamptonshire at least, are clearly not science fiction fans, or at least not Peter F. Hamilton fans. Or it was too heavy for them to carry home because it is quite thick. But it's in a plastic sleeve. The cover looks like it's actually in excellent condition. I doubt it's even been read. Well, it can't have been read. It's not been taken out. So effectively brand new. So that one, very happy with that one. It was only a few pounds. This one, however, is also an ex-library book, and despite, well, I actually don't know if it was ever taken out because someone's removed the sheet at the front where they date stamp it, sort of quaintly old-fashioned style. But unfortunately, this one, although the cover's not too bad, it's in again in a plastic cover like library books do. It's a little bit beaten up around the edges, but not too badly. But the spine and the binding is kind of on its way out. It just feels kind of slack. It's not tight like a new book or a book in good condition would be. It's just a bit loose, and I think it would just be kind of floppy to read, if you know what I mean. But so that was slightly more disappointing. It's also got something that's been removed from the back page. You may not see it there, but someone's ripped something out, a sticker or something, probably to do with the library. I did only pay £4 or £5 for it, more than the other one. This was bought from an individual who'd listed it rather than one of these kind of massive second-hand book warehouse type places. But it'll do. Perhaps one will turn up. So I bought, again, for no real reason, because I've got both of them in perfectly good paperbacks, but I was, like I said, felt like I was on a mission to fill out my Peter F. Hamilton hardback collection. So this is not in great condition. It's got some damage there. It looks like a burn mark, actually, or some staining of some kind. And the cover is pretty beaten up on the edges there, just from shelf wear, I think. So I was initially a bit disappointed. I mean, it's not in terrible condition. It's pretty tight. The spine's certainly in much better condition than the last one. The pages look like they're in, perfectly acceptable condition. It's a standalone, but it's like I don't know how many pages. Yeah, nearly 1,100 pages standalone, so it's pretty weighty tome just on its own. But what I hadn't realised, and it certainly wasn't listed this way, this was from like World of Books, or one of those book warehouse places where it's a bit of a lottery. They might have 15 copies of this on their shelves, and they list them as good or very good or whatever on their website. And so the person who's picking them off the shelf just grabs one, so you don't know which one you're going to get. So I sort of won the World of Books lottery. It might not have been World of Books, it might have been Awesome Books or one of these other places, but same basic idea. But this one, I didn't even notice the sticker actually until just now. It has got a signed by the author sticker on it, and indeed it has Mr. Hamilton's paw print on it. So, although it's not in fantastic condition, it's in good enough condition. I would say it's in kind of good rather than very good state. It'll look fine on the shelves. I haven't read this book. Actually, it's one of the few of his that I haven't read. Actually, I haven't read, there's several of his standalone novels that I haven't read that I will get to. Very happy to have it. It's in good condition. When I've got a spare month, I'll read it. And then the last of my sort of fit of impatience, strictly speaking, is against the rules really. I wasn't even trying to fill out a missing set. I can't even use that as an excuse. I was just impatient really. But this was £3 or £3.50, something like that, online including delivery. It again, sort of gambling a little bit, playing sort of book warehouse roulette. It isn't in terrible condition, but the cover at the base and at the top, just from shelf wear, probably being carried around in someone's bag and getting jostled about. The cover's not in brilliant condition. The book itself is fine. So anyway, I can't promise I won't get impatient with other things online, but I might have learnt my lesson a bit. That whilst I can quite easily get stuff online, you can't really. There's no substitute for having it in your hands and being able to see what condition it's in. Still, can't complain. A signed first edition from Peter F. Hamilton. I'll take that as a win from that set of 4. So all of these books to follow, and there are many, were acquired in, all of them in charity shops in various kind of places local to me. And this one I got on Saturday, and this is an author that I have heard of, but only peripherally, but have never read anything by. Lois Bujold. This one is Mirror Dance. It's one of the Vorkosigan series. He's a protagonist, a sort of hero character. And this, I think, is actually the last one of them, or it's the most recent one. According to the notes inside the book, it's the most recent one of the series at the point this was published, which was I think in the mid-90s. 1994. So this is... And then a recent charity shop find. I don't know anything about that. Or the author. Never heard of it. So if you've seen that before or read it, let me know. I'm interested to hear what that's like. Really no idea. And then I found a David Brin, Gregory Benford collab. Honestly not convinced I'll get around to reading it. It's probably going to be quite low on my... It might not even make the TBR pile, to be honest. I've got plenty of others that fit that category. But it's there, it's on the shelf, it's in good condition. I paid £1.99 for it in an Oxfam bookshop. And then I found this, which is in almost, it's got some slight kind of scuffs on the bottom of the spine, almost as new condition. I suspect it's been rare because it's got a slight bend but no creasing in the spine. I have the UK kind of black spine sort of matching these in the Hyperion Cantos, the first 2. But for some reason I must have bought them when I was in the US. I have US editions of these, which are perfectly okay, but they don't match, which is upsetting. So I now have, strangely, twice as thick. This is twice as thick as the US edition. I don't know why. Is the writing much bigger? Not really. So I've got this, so that'll go on the shelf now, and I'll have to look out for... I might have to keep both of these while they're a matching set. It will upset me to get rid of one and then have 2 unmatching ones. I much rather have... It won't really upset me. It's not going to keep me awake at nights, but it's untidy. So I will keep both of these until I find the one that matches these, and then probably I'll keep all 4 of them. The other 2 should go to charity, of course. Right, so only week, 10 days ago, I found these in a charity shop, the first 2 books of the Gormenghast trilogy, Titan Grown and Titus Grown rather, and Gormenghast. The third one is Titus Alone. So what I should have done, wait for the universe to provide the third one, ideally in a matching set. But lo and behold, what happened only a few days later was that I saw Titus Alone. It's not in a matching set, but if I'd seen this on its own, I would have got it, and I would have dealt with the fact that it wasn't a matching set for a while. But no, it wasn't on its own, it was in a set. So I've now got a matching set of 3, of all 3 of them. Now they all go together, and they're not in perfect condition. They're very well read and pretty aged. I don't know when they're from. It's late 90s. So I think these are more recent than the other 2. So again, what should happen is I should put these back in circulation, but I feel strangely inclined to see if if the third one of these turns up, and then I'll have 2 matching sets, which is just honestly fucking stupid. These should go to charity, but I can't quite bring myself to do that. It's a problem. So these were a recent find in the Oxfam, just a regular Oxfam charity shop near my office in Richmond. Both of them. So The Sparrow, which is a book I've read and seen quite a bit about in the last few years, but not read. And then what I gather is the sequel, or at least a follow-on of some kind to it. What's this one called? Children of God. So again, a sort of religion and science fiction kind of collide story. It's interesting, sort of wait for years and then several of them turn up. Planetfall was one that I've read recently and reviewed on this channel only a few days ago. So I'm interested to read this one. I gather there's even more religion in this one, and probably this one too. I'm intrigued by those. So that's a nice set. They're in very good condition. Some slight, barely visible creasing down the spine and a couple of dings on the edge. But, you know, honestly, if you bought them in a shop you wouldn't take them back and complain. They look like they're pretty new. Got Kim Stanley Robinson, The Years of Rice and Salt, which I have read but don't have a copy of until now. I think it's a US edition actually, but I won't hold that against it. But I really enjoyed this one. It's sort of an alternate history one, you know, if something. So I think the premise of the story, if I remember rightly, is the Black Death in the 1600s, or maybe even a previous version of it, wipes out Europe. Because effectively Europe is depopulated, and all of that space is taken up by the Arabs coming from the south and the kind of Mongol hordes coming from the east, and that changes the history of the world. Obviously, there's no European kind of colonization of the Americas. That's done by other people. It's an interesting story. I quite liked it. And then finally, when I say finally, I mean finally in this little pile, there's still 4 or 5 piles to go, so don't worry that we're not done, is the missing book, or rather the book that I was missing from the Dark Tower series. It's a relatively recent edition, so it was Wizard and Glass that I was missing, which was book 4, I think, of the series. I have read them all. I owned the first 3, and I picked up a hardback of Wolves of the Callar at some point in the past, and I read the rest on IFI ebooks. It's so good. You know, I have a soft spot for Stephen King. I read a lot of Stephen King when I was a teenager, but in particular the Dark Tower series is epic. So I'm very happy to have a complete set. They don't match; they're all over the place, but who cares? Very happy to have those. I'll show off the rest of them when I do a library tour, when these shelves are completely jam-packed. Alright, so another charity shop bonanza, the same one that I got all the Peter F. Hamilton hardbacks in a while back. So I got 4 Richard Morgan books, and who I'd never heard of, and I only recognised because I recognised the name of this one, Altered Carbon, which is a TV series, which I've never seen. But I gather it's pretty good. Well, a seamless marriage of hardcore cyberpunk and hard-boiled detective, apparently. So I haven't read it, don't know much about it, apart from what I've just seen on the back cover. Pretty good condition paperback. Broken Angels, which I think is a follow-on, probably not directly, but I think there are several in the series involving some of the same characters as Altered Carbon. Broken Arrow, don't know anything more about it. That's a big trade paperback, shiny. And then there were 2 hardbacks in, again, excellent condition. This one is called Woken Furies. It's basically new. There's no wear and tear on it really at all. It's very tight, hard. The pages are in good condition. I think this must be it involves the same character, Takeshi Kovacs, as Altered Carbon, so it's somewhere in the series of those. And then the 4th one that I got, I think is in a different league. I'm not sure if it's standalone or if it's in the same series or what, but it is called Black Man. It's a thriller, science fiction. I think it's science fiction-ish. More than that, I don't know. So again, it's in excellent condition. There's maybe a tiny bit of shelfware to the bottom and the top of the dust jacket, but again, if you bought this in a shop, you would be perfectly happy to take that home with you. And then I lost my C.J. Cherry. This is the first C.J. Cherry book I've found in the wild. I don't have never read anything by her, but I gather she's a bit of a sci-fi queen of the past. This one is Cytine, which I think was originally published as 3 separate novels. So this is a sort of omnibus edition. I think there are 3 small. This is a big fat trade paperback, giant hardback size paperback. A feature as detailed as that of Herbert's Dunes. That's quite a comparison to make, a bold claim. So looking forward to reading that at some point. I hear good things about her. I don't know how I feel about this book. Objectively, I'm very happy to have it, but I fear for what it means, honestly, and for reasons that will become clear. So this I found on Saturday in the charity shop for the Princess, a charity shop which, by the way, normally has no science fiction whatsoever. I go in there sort of forlornly hoping a different one. Had this and a few other things as well, which I'll come to in a minute. So for this big chunky anthology of short stories, I paid the princely sum of £1, not a penny more, not a penny less. It is the 15th in what I gather is a set of 35 annual anthologies of science fiction short stories. Confusingly, the US series originally published in the US. The US series started, I gather, 3 or 4 books before the UK one did, so the numbering's a bit off, but the UK ones, there are 35 of them, I think. Maybe 30. Over 30 anyway. The important point is I've got one of them and there's still 30 or more to get if I want the full set, and obviously I do. So that's a bit worrying. So I am going to have to resist the temptation to go and buy them for like a £5 each on eBay. So I'll just wait until they turn up, and they will. But this is in excellent condition. It's a bit kind of yellowed on the text block, and this one dates back to 2002. I was going to say 90s, but early 2000s. So there have been 20 odd of them since this, and there were obviously another 14 before this one, dating back to the early 80s. Or the mid-80s. So there's 26 stories in here. There's one by Dan Simmons, he of Hyperion fame, one by Ken MacLeod, and one by Alistair Reynolds. So, and there's a whole bunch more in there as well. Charles Stross, for example. But short stories, it's in good condition, a nice big weighty tome. It's been a long time since I've read any short stories actually, so I must tuck into that one. This next one, when the Oxfam Bookshop in Woodley, where I'm in the habit now of going once a week. So I went on Saturday, and my eyes were drawn straight to the science fiction, fantasy / horror shelf is right in front of you as you walk in the shop. So I saw it as I walked in. Clearly it's not science fiction. Stephen King's It in hardback, and my heart went a-flutter as I contemplated the possibility that this might be a first edition. So I went straight down on my knees to go and grab it and have a closer look. Sadly, it's not quite. Well, it is a first edition, technically speaking. It's a first edition, but it's first printed 1986, 8th impression, January 1990. So it's got the same cover as the first edition, but it's several years down the line, a few years, and it's the 8th impression. So it's the 8th time there was a print run with this cover on it. And honestly, it's not in super condition. The binding's gone a little bit on the inside just a little bit on the inside of the spine. Probably with if I knew what I was doing, I could probably glue that back again. Again, a book that I read in my teens or early 20s that I really enjoyed. Is obviously an iconic Stephen King book, and I now have it in nearly a first edition hardback in okay condition. Certainly, it would be a great addition to my shelves. So next, a week or two back, I found yet another Orson Scott Card short story collection. I have another one as well, and this one is a mix, I think, of science fiction and fantasy and other kinds of short stories. So much more than that, I don't know. In fact, it's split into sections. There are 2, 4, 6 science fiction stories, 2, 4, 6, 8, about 8 fantasy, and then there's some literary short stories, and then there's a set of Mormon stories at the back. God knows what those are like. But so that's a pretty good set. It's over 600 pages of Orson Scott Card short stories. So a while back, I picked up this sort of trade stock. It's actually a bit kind of. No, it's exactly the same. Stupid man. So I picked up this, which I remembered as being a trade paperback size book. It's not, it's just a B format. And I remember saying on the whole video, I read it, it was okay, didn't like the follow-on ones. So I was in the same shop that I got that science fiction compilation, this one, 15th of 35 in, for £1. They had a bunch of things actually, but they had a full set in as new condition, maybe a little bit faded on the text block, but the cover and the spines are both look like unread. They had the full set of the Long Earth series that Pratchett and Baxter wrote together before Pratchett sadly died or became incapable of writing. For £1 each, I feel like I can give them another go for £1 each. I probably rushed through them. They might be better than I remember. I do think they tailed off a little bit, sort of became a bit repetitive. Perhaps, but who cares? For £1 each, they're in perfect condition. Basically, they're new. So I got all 5 for considerably less than the cost of one of them. So, frankly, even if they're not very good, can't complain. So the other one which I had already is actually slightly worse condition, so that can go back into circulation. In that same shop, for £1 each, they had. So that's book 1 of a series of 4 by Elizabeth Moon. I've got another one of hers called Remnant Population that I haven't read yet, but I saw someone in another booktuber's video, someone recommending that specific book, so I should read it. Not read any of her books, but I'm here for female science fiction authors. God knows there aren't that many of them, so I'm very happy to read this. And let's see, that's the second one. Cool pictures on the front. Fred Gambini, I think it is, and then that's book 3. That is book 4. So I have, which I think is the full set. So I have the full set, slightly worn on the spine, with those Elizabeth Moon books, which I'm pretty happy about. And then they also had, someone obviously dropped their Elizabeth Moon collection, they had a slightly larger kind of B format. I think this is, yes, an omnibus edition. It contains 2 books, Change of Command and Against the Odds. I did have to check that it wasn't a duplicate of any of those 4, but it isn't. And then the last of this pile, this considerable haul, until recently I didn't own any Anne McCaffrey books. I picked up a couple that someone gave me as part of a vintage set. It was in the last haul video actually. And I've never read anything by her, never owned anything by her, and I keep seeing people talking about Anne McCaffrey. I always thought that she was sort of kind of pulpy fantasy author, but I was mostly wrong. I think she's very firmly a science fiction author. So this is the first of a set of 4, all of which I got. Freedom's Landing, the first book of the Catani series. Don't know much about it. That's the second. Freedom's Ransom. That's the third. Freedom's Challenge. Quite cool pictures on the front. And then, no, I've got them in the wrong order. That's actually the second. So despite my best efforts, I've put them in the wrong order. Rookie booktuber error. This is Freedom's Choice, which is the second. So which one is it? Yeah, so that I showed you and said was the second is actually the 4th. So I have to give those a go at some point. I think they're relatively recent compared to some of her work. This was published in, the late 90s. So at some point in a parallel universe where I have the time, I'll give those a bash. So that's everything for this time. Well, that's it for this video. Thank you again for watching. I appreciate you sticking right to the end. If you haven't already done so, why not subscribe to the channel and get reminded when I publish something new. And then if you could also hit the like button, that would be awesome. But I will be back soon, probably with a review. I ought to have a little rest from buying books, I think, for the sake of my bank balance, if nothing else. So almost certainly a review next. But thank you for watching, and goodbye. See you soon.